Hello, this is Wilma Tacos, and welcome back to another Stories from Sector 8 video. You'll forgive me if I sound high-strung and kind of stressed out this video. That is because I'm currently going through a lot of stress. This week has not been kind to me. When I got my computer back from the recent hard drive dying, none of the Windows default apps on the computer work anymore, including Calculator and any of the other Microsoft services I've tried to be using. And recently, just today, just 5 minutes ago, I learned that even the voice recorder no longer works. So, excuse me, sorry. It's a miracle. Yeah, miracle. Miracle's a good word for it. It's a miracle that Movie Maker comes with a setting to record narration. I don't know how well it works, but it's a very good thing that Movie Maker has one. Otherwise, I would not be able to do this because I can't record just plain audio. I'd have to get into a game and cancel out the game or something, sitting in the menu and talk, which would not be very good. This is Stories from Sector 8. For those of you who are just joining in the series, this is a series, sort of a podcast with just me, where I talk about Warhammer 40k. And starting today, it is now no longer a Warhammer 40k podcast. It is now a Warhammer podcast. Today, for the first time ever, I played Warhammer Fantasy, or Age of Sigmar. I recently bought into Age of Sigmar because in my local area, the 40k scene has almost completely died. As I explained in my other Stories from Sector 8 videos, it's basically me fighting the same two people week after week after week because nobody plays. But the fantasy scene, the Age of Sigmar scene, is much more popular. There's actually quite a few players playing Age of Sigmar right now because it's new. So I'm sure it'll die out eventually, but so I decided to buy in with a small contingency, and I'm planning on buying more, but 40k is still probably going to be my focus. I say that I'll probably end up buying a lot of fantasy stuff in the near future because I'm having more fun with fantasy than I am 40k because I'm able to actually play fantasy. So this video is going to be fantasy based, and I'm sorry there's no pretty, not pretty, but no thumbnail for this like there was in the last one because I can't find good wallpaper images that I could just cut and paste on the paint to make a pretty little, ugly little thumbnail like I did in the last video. So this is probably just going to be a blank screen, or I'll find some image out there. So this video marks my first delving into fantasy, or Age of Sigmar, whichever you prefer. It is we're playing Age of Sigmar edition, but it's still Warhammer Fantasy. I played 2 games today, and both of them were relatively short, so I will be going into detail about those 2 games, but there's not much to tell. I only have 1 fantasy army, and I kind of intended to keep it that way. I don't think I'll buy 2 fantasy armies because if I get that much into fantasy, I think I have a problem. I'm trying to stay to 1, and I only have a small contingency. I have the starter box for the army. I have Seraphon. For those of you who don't know what Seraphon are, they're lizardmen. If you imagine lizardmen, and that's them to a T. They're lizardmen. They used to be called lizardmen until Age of Sigmar came out, in which they renamed them to Seraphon. It's been said that they changed the name to Seraphon because Games Workshop, the company that owns Fantasy and Age of Sigmar, wanted to be able to trademark the name, and you can't trademark the name Lizardmen because it's just too generic. But they renamed it to Seraphon so that they can put a trademark on it. And they did. So I play Seraphon. It's what I wanted to play. The only other armies that interest me are Tomb Kings, which are dead. You can't play Tomb Kings in Age of Sigmar, not really. I don't think they're really around as an army anymore. They kind of got killed off. The other one I wanted to play was Skaven, but in my local area there was already a Skaven player, and who's playing what to me is a big factor in what I decide to play, because I always have more fun playing with armies that aren't being played. You'll have to excuse me. My 2 cats are getting very, very not friendly to each other right now. You can probably hear them fighting in the background for this video. if that continues, I'm going to have to do something about that, but for the time being, I will just watch, and my face is not pointing towards the microphone, so you probably can't hear me all that well. So I have Seraphon. I have the start collecting box for Seraphon, which contains Scar Veteran on a Carnosaur. It contains 12 Saurus Guard and 8 Saurus Knights. Basically, 1 T-Rex. Yeah, one T-Rex. 12 dudes with swords and shields, and 8 dudes on raptors, mounted cavalry. They're raptors. Lizardmen, the whole dinosaur lizard thing going on. The first game I played against was the same guy who I played demons with all the time. Same guy, but because demons are demons, they are both a fantasy and a 40k army. So he just played his demons for fantasy, and it's hard to go into detail about Age of Sigmar, because if you don't know it, it's very different from 40k because there's no point costs. You just bring whatever you want. There's some rules, but it's very much just if you have it, bring it. So players kind of have to decide what's balanced between themselves. So he brought an army against me that he said in his own words he thought would just cream me. Like he was expecting a total victory, which is not completely accurate for Age of Sigmar. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Okay, Age of Sigmar has rules called sudden death victories, where if your opponent has 1/3 more models than you, which is not a lot more. If he has 1/3 more models than you, you get to play off the sudden death victory, which means it's one of various options where you pick one, and that's a victory for you. So I picked one where he has to pick a unit that has at least 5 guys in it, and he picked a unit of 10. And my sudden death victory is I have to kill that unit. All I have to do is kill that one unit, and I win. There are other victory conditions, but all I have to do is kill that one unit. So it's not particularly in your advantage to just spam the table with dudes, even if you own that many of them, because if your opponent has less dudes than you, he's going to get that chart, and that chart can really matters. It did matter in this game. I lost. He didn't cream me as much as he thought he would, but he did ultimately cream me. My Seraphon have no wizards, not in the starter box, so I didn't have a wizard. And I learned, my first game of fantasy, my first game of Age of Sigmar, I learned the hard way that Age of Sigmar is wizard or bust if your opponent has a wizard. If somebody brings a wizard, you had better have a wizard of your own, because if you don't, it gets really nasty, and it did. My big Carnosaur, my big T-Rex, died very quickly to a spell called Arcane Bolt, which he did 2 of. He could do 2 of every turn, and without a wizard of my own, there was nothing I could do against it. So my guy just died. Like, he went from 1 wound to dead in a single turn, and he is a 12 wound model. He took 11 wounds in a single turn. It took many phases. It went through the hero phase, shooting phase, and combat phase, but he died in 1 turn, which is apparently not too uncommon in fantasy. The thing with fantasy, one of the big differences between fantasy and 40k is in fantasy, there's no such thing as toughness. You have your character has a weapon, and it says to hit, and it says to wound, and they are set numbers. It doesn't matter what you are attacking. So in fantasy, little dudes can kill the biggest thing. That's how it is, and if there's enough of them, they can do it with ease. So my Carnosaur died pretty quick. What had happened originally is he had. For those of you who know Age of Sigmar, I'll go into the units. He had 1 unit, 10 men of Bloodletters, 10 men of what are they called? Demonettes, 10-man unit of Plague Bearers, and he had one Demon Prince who I think was unmarked. Also, he had a 10-man unit of Pink Horrors, and he made the 10-man unit of Pink Horrors the thing I had to kill, because I get to pick on the chart that says I have to kill one unit, but he gets to pick the unit. So he could either pick something that's hard to kill, or he could pick something where he's just going to keep it on the other side of the table and try to play keep away, whatever. It's his choice. But he picked the Pink Horrors. I had my 12 Saurus Guard, my 8 Knights, and my 1 Carnosaur, Scar Veteran. And I won the initiative, but I let him go first because there was a player who's been playing for a while. He was trying to advise me. He was advising the both of us, but he was mostly advising me because he knew it was my first game. He wasn't trying to like he wasn't saying like do this and do this and do this. Like, he wasn't trying to make me win. He was just giving me general advice about the game. And he said, if you're running a melee army like I was, he said it's best not to go first because you want the enemy to get closer to you. I'm accustomed to 40k, in which case you don't want to go first. You do want to go first. You do want to go first with a melee army because you get to move forward and be closer instead of just being shot and then having to move closer anyways. But I let him go first, and he moved closer to me, and he didn't shoot me. No shooting, because he had nobody in range for shooting. So my turn 2 came around. No, my turn 1 came around, and because he moved closer to me, I was able to move forward, and I got a whole bunch of assaults off. I got an assault off with all of my guys. My Knights got an assault off, my Carnosaur got an assault off, and my Guard got an assault off. My Knights assaulted the Bloodletters. Excuse me. My windpipe is clogging up on me. It's making me not want to speak. My Knights assaulted his Bloodletters. My Guard assaulted the Demonettes, and my Carnosaur assaulted the Demonettes, because the Plague Bearers, the Pink Horrors, and the Demon Prince were all far away. My Knights utterly creamed the Bloodletters by themselves, just the Knights. And I didn't outright kill them, but I did way more damage to them than they did to me. And my Carnosaur and my Guard killed all the Demonettes. Like, there were no Demonettes left in play. So in one turn, all the Demonettes went down, which is fair. There's only 10 of them, whatever. So that was my turn. Next time we got the initiative, and he went first that time. So you roll initiative every round, so you don't get to keep going first and first and first. You have to roll. So he went first that time, which means he moved his Plague Bearers around, and he moved his Tzeentch around, and he moved his Demon Prince forward. Well, what happened is, during his hero phase, he used a spell that every wizard knows. All wizards know them. It's called Arcane Bolts. And you have to roll to get it to work, and he succeeded. And then you roll a d3. And whatever you shoot takes d3 mortal wounds. Mortal wounds are different from regular wounds because you can't save against them. There's no invulnerable save. I think there is, but I don't have any, and they're apparently very rare. So, He did it twice, because his Demon Prince is a wizard so he can cast a spell, and his Pink Horror is a wizard so they can cast a spell. So he did 2 Arcane Bolts, and he put both of them on my big Carnosaur. And it's d3 wounds. The first time he rolled a 3, the second time he rolled 2. And I mean, like, the first time it was like a 6, and then the other time it was like a 3 or something. It was on a d3, it was 3 and it was 2. So 5 unsavable wounds right on top of the guy who had 1 to begin with, because he took 1 from the Demonettes. So now he was at 6 wounds out of 12. He was halfway dead. Then during his shooting phase, the Pink Horrors have shots, which are forced to hit and forced to wound. Again, whatever you are, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a tiny little skink or if you're a big Carnosaur. It's forced to hit, forced to wound. So, and he got a bunch of wounds off, and I failed my saves. So I went up to 10 out of 12 wounds. I took 4 wounds from their shots. I'm holding 4 up in fingers. You can't see it, but it's there. And then he assaulted with the Bloodthirster. He assaulted with the Demon Prince. He assaulted with the Pink Horrors, and he assaulted with the Plague Bearers. The Demon Prince assaulted the Carnosaur. And the Pink Horrors and Plague Bearers both went on the guard. And what happened was, since it was his turn, he gets to pick who attacks first. In Age of Sigmar, another big difference between Age of Sigmar and 40k is during the assault phase, players go back and forth between their attacks. So you activate a unit. I say I activate my Demon Prince, and the Demon Prince attacks. Then it's mine, and I say then I could activate the Carnosaur, or I could activate a different unit. It's whoever you want to go first. It's whoever you pick, and whoever's turn it is, they get to pick theirs first. So he got to pick first, and he picked the Demon Prince. And the Demon Prince immediately did the other 2 wounds to the Carnosaur. It's dead. It's gone. The rest of his attacks, because he had more, he had plenty left over, and he started killing off the Knights. And the Knights eventually killed the Bloodletters, but they were locked in combat with the Prince and eventually died to the Demon Prince. And the Guard eventually died to the Plague Bearers and the Pink Horrors. I got the Pink Horrors down to 3 left out of 10. And if I had killed those last 3, I would have won the game because of the sudden death victory. But I only got them down to 3 out of 10. So I got pabled. I lost with a Demon Prince, very slightly wounded, 3 Pink Horrors, and I think it was like 9 Plague Bearers left. Because I was ignoring the Plague Bearers, of course. I was trying to do all the wounds to the Pink Horrors, so I could just win. My second game was against a different opponent who, he gave me the choice of what army to pick, and I just picked one. One of them was really, like, I knew it was really bad. It was like, I didn't want to fight you. I mean, he offered to play his Sylvaneth, and his Sylvaneth are pretty obese, pretty badass. Like Sylvaneth are like trees and druids and dryads. Like they're all woodsy army, and they are mean son of a guns. So I did not pick those. And the other one, what I picked from him was Stormcast Eternal. I picked Stormcast Eternal, and he of course picked his units. What he brought was, I'm going to get these names wrong because I'm so unfamiliar with fantasy. He brought 3 Retributors. He brought 10 Liberators. He brought 3 dudes with angel wings and 2 hammers. I don't know their name. Angel dudes with throwing hammers. They're a ranged unit. And he brought a hero, his HQ or whatever you want to call it, who was on this dragony thing that spits fire. A lizard like mine, but I don't get to convert it to my cause, unfortunately. So that's what he brought. And he had the 1 ranged unit, and how this one went, it went the same way. I won the initiative, but I let him go first. So he moved towards me. His 3 guys with the wings flew off to one side of the table, like far away. And he told me this, like in the end, he told me this was a strategy he did on purpose. I'll explain later. So my knights went forward. Actually, no. I'm telling the story wrong. I'm sorry. I went first, but I didn't move far because I didn't want to get charged by too much. So I went first, and I just moved, and he went first, and he went second, and he charged. His 3 Retributors charged my knights, and his warlord, his HQ, his guy in the dragony thing, charged my T-Rex. And his 3 winged angels flew off to the side. My guard went chasing the angels. We'll call them angels. The 3 Retributors are bad ass. They are really, really freaking like boosh. Those three killed my knights. No casualties. I didn't kill a single one of those guys. Those guys are freaking mean. Those retributors. I'm glad he only had 3 of them. Those guys are tough customers. They are not friendly. So they killed my knights big time. His hero, because of the way my army was positioned, his hero could either focus attacks on my T-Rex or he could put his attacks on my knights. And he was there, like, he was the counselor guy who I was telling you about last game, who was like trying to tell me kind of what to do. So he was watching me play the whole time, and he saw what my knights did to those bloodlayers, and he was not, like, he apparently was quite intimidated. So his hero, even though it was touching like my big Carnosaur, focused its attacks on the knights as well. So my knights just got crushed. Unfortunately for him, I'm sure he knew the risk. This left my Carnosaur basically unscathed for the most part, and my Carnosaur killed his hero. It took 2 turns, but he killed him. That Carnosaur, if you leave him alone, he hits like a truck. He does. So, I killed his hero. We'll call them heroes for the names, because that's what they are. They're hero types. They're, instead of HQ, it's hero. My hero killed his hero, but his hero and his 3 retributors killed my knights. And then the 3 retributors and his squad of liberators, I think that's what they're called, liberators, assaulted the Carnosaur, and they killed the Carnosaur. It's just too many wounds, because again, toughness, or there's no toughness or anything, so they piled on attacks, and they went down fast. My 12 guard chased those 3 angels, and I caught them and completely crushed them. I lost 1 guard, so I had 11 guys left, and all 3 of his angels died. So but my big guy, my Carnosaur, before it went down, killed the 3 retributors, because I did all my attacks on them. So what it ended up was my guard were quite a bit away, like not like a turn's distance. They were over there, 11 strong, and he had like 8 of his liberators left, and he said his liberators were his army's smucks, and I'm putting in air quotes you can't see. If you don't know what a schmuck is in terms of wargaming, tabletop gaming, a schmuck is just cannon fodder. He's like the worst piece in your army, but he's supposed to be like the cheapest if there was a point cost. You know what I mean? Like he's the dirt. He's the cannon fodder. Cannon fodder is the proper term. But he said those 8 guys were his army's versions of smucks. So his 8 guys who didn't have any range, and my 11 guys who didn't have any range, went into combat with each other. And I rolled like crap. So just it took 2 or 3 rounds, but he won. He killed me. Eventually, it got down to 3 of his smucks versus 3 of my smucks, and his smucks are way better than my guard. So he killed he killed my guard, and he only had 3 guys left. He won by 3 dudes on the table. His smucks, as he called them, have a 4-up armor save, and they get to re-roll 1s, and they need 3s and 3s to hit. If those are not, like, if those are his version of schmucks, it's like, wow. That, like, calling those schmucks are the same thing as calling, like, tactical range schmucks for the Space Marine Codex, which they are. Well, I guess, no, maybe scouts would be the schmucks, but scouts are, I wouldn't call scouts schmucks, because usually you bring them for a specific purpose, not cannon fodder. Usually you kid them with sniper rifles, or you bring them to jump into behind someone's line and draw attention, but I wouldn't call them schmucks. I'd call tactical marines the schmucks. But his schmucks were better than my guard, and I'm not calling my guard schmucks because lizardmen have much more schmuckier things than guard. Like, that's what skinks are for. Skinks are our versions of schmucks. So his Retributors were badass, but my Carnosaur took him out, and it was his 8 versus my 11, and I just rolled really bad. Otherwise, I probably could have had it. I rolled bad, and he won by those 3 guys left. That game was much closer than the first game, and I learned a lot of things about fantasy. I mean, as you would expect, was my first and second game, but I'm actually enjoying fantasy a lot, and I considered not doing fantasy for these Stories from Sector 8 videos, but when I thought about it, if this series is just going to be for 40k purposes, it's probably going to be like maybe months between episodes some of these days, especially because I'm primarily going to be focusing on fantasy for the next couple of months, because fantasy is just more popular. And the other thing is, it kind of makes sense from a lore perspective. I know some of you are going, what? But it is not an uncommon theory. It's been proposed by many that the fantasy universe, which is like medieval times, actually takes place in the 40k universe at the same time, like simultaneously. It's been predicted. It's been said that the fantasy universe is a planet in the 40k universe that most, not all, most of the species haven't encountered. It's just like it's far off in nowhere, because there's a lot of primitive planets. Like, there's a ton of them in 40k. Like, every army does it all the time. They go to primitive planets who don't have, like, they're starting to grow, and they don't have space tech and all that stuff, and we either recruit them or kill them, depending on which codex you're playing. But it's predicted that the fantasy planet, or the Age of Sigmar planet, is just another planet out there. And one of the big theories that one of the big things people say that help support this theory is the presence of demons, who are the same in fantasy and the same in 40k, and the presence of orcs, who are called a different thing, but orcs, they're the same species. The orcs and the demons are both exactly the same, and it's said that because orcs are so omnipresent, they're on this planet as well. But because this planet is so isolated from everywhere else, these orcs haven't encountered the more scientifically advanced orcs, if you can call them that, and that's why they don't use guns and all that stuff. They use primitive weapons, because they're surrounded by other primitive things, so they haven't learned how to be more advanced. The demons are exactly the same in fantasy and 40k, so it's just more warp shenanigans for them. So it's a common theory, and I figure, well, if Stories from Sector 8 is supposed to be my experiences in my game store, which is what Sector 8 is, that's the big reveal. Sector 8 is my area, is what I call my store. The store is not called Sector 8, but that's what I think of it. I like to think that all the battles that happen are just like what happens in like a 40k campaign, or like a 40k story, or whatever, where Space Marines fight and win, and Tau fight and win, and Orcs fight and win, and all this stuff happens. And I make canon and little stories that happen for all this stuff. Like I said before, I'm pretty sure the story for my orcs is my orcs lose all the time, but I've never had my war boss die. My primary war boss, he's never died. So my story is he always keeps coming back with more boys, because they've never killed him yet. So it's just like, that's how I think of it. And if the fantasy planet is supposed to be a planet in the 40k universe, I think it belongs in here too. And plus, it's just a way for me to make more videos of this series. So for my first delving into fantasy, I like it, but I need to work on getting war models, especially a wizard, who I already have one coming. So as soon as I have a wizard, hopefully things will be a little bit more balanced for me. But thank you for listening, and hopefully there'll be another one of these videos next week.